So I recently picked up a copy of The Legend of Zelda Phantom Hourglass, and I've just finished my first ever playthrough of the game. And you know, considering that this is the Zelda title that everyone loves to hate on, I think it's got a pretty banging intro. This song has been stuck in my head for the last week. Alright, have you guys got your singing voices ready? Perfect. Everyone with me. Nintendo need to remake this game. Because what I realized in my recent playthrough of the Phantom Hourglass is that if you just take away a few of the questionable aspects of this game, you're left with a really strong foundation for an amazing Zelda experience. Exploring the Great Sea was the best part of this game for me, by far. It is so much fun traveling through the waters, discovering new islands, and seeing what they all have to offer. However, since this game was released on a potato, I couldn't help but feel that this game had so much more to offer. All of the ideas are there, but they're just all so restrained by the hardware limitations of the Nintendo DS. So let's talk about the issues with the Phantom Hourglass on the Nintendo DS. In the Phantom Hourglass, pretty much all of the controls require the use of the touchscreen. There's no alternative option with a more traditional button layout. If you want to play this game, you have to get used to the touchscreen. And that includes everything from moving around, to swinging your sword, to doing spin attacks, to rolling, to using items. It all requires the touchscreen. And obviously, this was a bit of a shock to me when I first started the game, but I will admit that you get used to these controls pretty quickly, and it's not the worst way to control a game that's ever been created. Obviously, I would 1000% prefer to use buttons to control Link, but the touchscreen method, whilst very unconventional, did the job. However, in saying that, I completely understand how this control method would make the game really unenjoyable for a lot of people. As well as this, the visuals on the game are pretty awful. They have not aged well at all, which is also the case for a lot of old DS games, but I think particularly with this one, it's really noticeable. So far in this video, the footage I've been using has been from an emulator, and that slightly upscales the quality, but I do also have a DS capture card, and this is what the game actually looks like if you're playing it on a DS. Yeah, it doesn't look too great. Another common complaint with this game is the repetitive nature of the Temple of the Ocean King. For those who haven't played Phantom Hourglass, essentially the Temple of the Ocean King is the main dungeon of the whole game, and you're required to go deeper and deeper into this dungeon to get sea charts and eventually defeat Bellum and save the day. And that's a really cool concept. However, the way the game handled it was pretty frustrating because it gets very repetitive. You have to go through the same floors so many times that it gets boring. Yeah, it's just really tedious and frustrating in a lot of ways, but it's also a really cool concept that I quite like the idea of. It just wasn't executed well. Another limitation to this game is its scope, because whilst it's really fun to explore the Great Sea, the actual area you have available to you is quite limited. There aren't actually too many different islands to explore, and that's obviously not really a fault of the game itself, but more so the hardware it was built on. But nonetheless, I think it's pretty clear that if the game could have, it definitely would have expanded the Great Sea and all of the islands available to the players a lot more than what we ended up getting in the final game. In addition to this, there's a few other minor things, such as the music in this game being pretty lackluster in most cases. Other than that banger track we all sung along to at the start of this video, there's not too many more notable songs that kind of stick with you as you're playing the game. Some of the puzzles are also really gimmicky and quite annoying. For example, when you arrive to the Goron Island and go up and meet the chief, he quizzes you on all of these dumb things on the island and forces you to backtrack all the way across the island, talk to every single Goron on the island, and memorize all of these really dumb things about the island to pass his stupid quiz to progress in this game. It honestly frustrated me so much, and what makes it worse is that every time you take the quiz, the f***er charges you rupees as well. I got absolutely swindled on this part of the game and had to Google the answers because I kept getting them wrong. However, as I've briefly touched on, what this game lacks in execution, it more than makes up for in ideas. The idea of the Temple of the Ocean King is great. A massive dungeon that the player returns to throughout their adventure and goes deeper and deeper until they reach the evil at the bottom. The fact that you can draw on the maps in this game is an amazing idea. It allows you to note areas that you want to come back to when you get new items later on in the game, and is massively useful for solving puzzles. The freedom you get in the Great Ocean is great. You can go anywhere you want, which, as I mentioned earlier, was my favorite aspect of this game. And, most importantly, it has an intriguing storyline and some pretty interesting characters as well. I just really like Linebeck, he's the fucking best. I'm not going to touch on the story of this game too much in this video. It's not the most complex storyline in the world, but in a lot of ways, it's very similar to Breath of the Wild's storyline. Prior to the events of the Phantom Hourglass, the Ocean King battled Bellum and lost. Similarly to how in Breath of the Wild, Link fought against Calamity Ganon 100 years prior to the events of the game and lost. You hear tales of Bellum throughout the game from the Ocean King himself, and you don't actually see Bellum until the very end of the game. Instead, you as the player just have to form a picture of what you think the great evil is based on the brief and vague descriptions that you receive from the Ocean King. And I think that's great because it causes a lot of intrigue. You don't know what you're up against until the end of the game when you're launched into that final fight. So yeah, for these reasons, I think Nintendo should remake this game. This game has the foundation to be an amazing Zelda experience. It just needs a few, well, actually a lot of quality of life improvements. And I think there's two different directions Nintendo could consider with remaking this game. The first of which is a soft remake, where the core foundation of the game stays the same, and you just add various quality of life improvements, such as allowing for button controls, updating the graphics, slightly altering the pacing of the Temple of the Ocean King, adding some revamped music to the game, and perhaps either removing or slightly altering some of the more annoying puzzles. However, I also think Nintendo could take another approach. They could choose to break down this game and rebuild it into a brand new experience. I think the Phantom Hourglass potentially has the foundation to be an amazing, fully 3D Zelda experience. It is the sequel to the Wind Waker after all, which is a fully 3D Zelda game. Obviously, this would take a lot of work, and admittedly, you would have to change a lot of things from the game to make it work, but I genuinely think they could do it. They could make the ocean travel in the game similar to that of the Wind Waker, add a ton more islands, keep the overall concept of the dungeons the same, but perhaps revamp the puzzles in them to make them more modern and suited towards a fully 3D experience, and do whatever the else they want to do with it, because I could really see them going down this path and kind of using the overall foundation of this game as a kind of slate to build a new experience off of. Anyways, no matter which way Nintendo decides to go with this game, if they even decide to remake it at all that is, it will require a lot of changes, and I genuinely think they can make a lot of changes to this game without diminishing what the Phantom Hourglass is. So in that respect, it has a lot of potential no matter which way Nintendo decides to go with a potential remake. Anyways, that is about it for this video, so I will see you guys next time. Did you enjoy this video? If you did, you should let me know by hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel if you have not done so already. There will also be a couple of my other videos on the screen right now if you want to go ahead and check those out. But other than that, there's nothing else, so I'm just gonna go now. Bye.